The Catholic Church had women called deaconesses. That's a historical fact. But does that mean the Church once ordained women to holy orders and then changed its mind? Most people online say yes. The narrative goes, women were ordained in the early Church, but then patriarchy took over and pushed them out. That idea is everywhere, from blog posts to academic papers to popular petitions. But here's what they leave out. The early Church absolutely recognized deaconesses. The title existed, the ministry existed, but it was never the same as the sacramental ordination given to male deacons. That distinction matters, and it changes the entire picture. Today, we're going to look carefully at the biblical, historical, and magisterial teaching around deaconesses in the Catholic Church. We'll also look at what Pope Francis had said, what's being studied now, and why this issue stirs up so much confusion. Because for lifelong Catholics, seekers, and anyone asking honest questions about women and ministry in the Church, this matters deeply. I've compiled a thorough review of the biblical texts, church fathers, historical councils, and modern magisterial documents, including the International Theological Commission and Pope Francis's own comments. I'll walk you through it without spin. If you're interested in deepening your faith, hit like and tell me where you're watching from. And if you find this valuable, consider subscribing to stay rooted in Catholic truth. You can also support the making of these videos, our team, and the tools we use through the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen. Let's begin by naming the real question underneath the debate. When people ask about women deacons, they're usually not just asking about job titles. They're asking, can women receive holy orders? Are they being excluded from a God-given sacrament just because they're women? That's a heavy question. And it matters, because if holy orders is a channel of grace instituted by Christ, then excluding someone unjustly would be serious. But if holy orders has essential theological elements tied to Christ's own action, then distorting it would also be serious. That's why the Church takes this slowly, because this isn't just about fairness or function, it's about fidelity. Now, some people argue that since we see the word deaconess in early texts, that's proof enough. After all, if women were called deacons and laid hands were involved, then surely it was sacramental, right? Let's test that. We start with Phoebe. Romans 16:1-2 says, I commend to you our sister Phoebe, a deacon of the church at Centuriae. Paul uses the Greek word diakonos, the same term used for male deacons elsewhere in Scripture. Phoebe is also described as a patron or benefactor of many, including Paul himself. That suggests she had influence, resources, and spiritual responsibility. Many scholars believe she delivered Paul's letter to the Roman Church. But does this mean she was sacramentally ordained? No. The word diakonos can mean minister, servant, helper, or official. In context, the term does show she had a recognized role, but not that she received holy orders. The Church has always used Scripture in light of tradition, not by isolated word studies. 1 Timothy 3:11 says, the women likewise must be serious, not slanderers, but temperate, faithful in all things. This line appears right in the middle of the qualifications for deacons. Early church fathers like St. John Chrysostom took this as a reference to deaconesses, not just wives. Still, even if that's true, it doesn't prove sacramental ordination. The Apostolic Constitutions, a 4th century church order from the East, lays out a rite of appointment for deaconesses. It includes laying on of hands, but specifies that deaconesses don't serve at the altar, don't consecrate the Eucharist, and don't preach publicly. Their main roles were ministering to women, especially in baptism, visitation, and charity. This made sense in a culture where male-female contact was strictly limited. St. Origen, commenting on Romans 16, affirms that women were appointed as deacons. But again, he does not equate that with the sacrament of holy orders. It was a distinct office with spiritual value, but not priestly function. That sets the stage. Without the next piece, it won't hold when life gets loud. Let's now clarify what the Church means by ordination. The Catechism teaches that holy orders is one sacrament with 3 degrees: bishop, priest, and deacon, CCC 1554. All 3 are part of the same sacramental reality. That means changes at the diaconal level affect the whole structure. The Church also teaches that only a baptized man validly receives sacred ordination, Catechism of the Catholic Church 1577, and that this practice is based on the example of Christ, who chose male apostles, not on socio-cultural bias. The Church doesn't have the authority to change this because it is tied to Christ's will. Now here's the key distinction. In the early church, not every role called an ordination was part of the sacrament of holy orders. The word ordination was also used for monastic blessings, abbacies, and other ministries of leadership. But those weren't sacraments. That's why the International Theological Commission, after a deep study in 2002, concluded that deaconesses in the early church cannot simply be assimilated to ordained deacons. The rites and functions were different in nature, even if some outward elements looked similar. If you'd like daily Catholic resources right at your fingertips, visit our website or scan the QR code on screen. You'll find daily Mass readings, the Seven Sorrows Rosary, devotional prayers, and Soul Search, a private web app for daily examination of conscience with guided reflections, progress tracking, and secure journaling to help you grow spiritually. Keep this and the next step multiplies it. Skip it and it collapses. Let's now look at what the Magisterium has said in our own time. Pope Benedict XVI clarified in 2009 that deacons do not act in persona Christi Capitis, in the person of Christ the head, as priests do. Deacons serve in the ministries of the word, liturgy, and charity. This distinction has led some to argue that women could be admitted to the diaconate without affecting the priesthood. But canon law still holds. Only baptized men can be ordained. Canon 1024. Pope Francis had addressed this question directly. In a 2024 interview with CBS, he was asked if women could become deacons. His answer was blunt: no. He added that women can carry out functions similar to deaconesses, but not receive holy orders. Still, Pope Francis had convened multiple commissions to study the history. These commissions have included respected theologians like Dr. Phyllis Zagano and examined all the early sources we've discussed. Some members argued for restoring a form of female diaconate. Others did not. The most recent statements from the Vatican in late 2024 indicate that there is no room for a positive decision at this time. Some Catholics feel disappointed by that. Others feel relieved. But the key is this: the Church is discerning carefully, because it's not just about historical precedent, it's about sacramental clarity. This opens the door. The next part shows how to walk through it. Now, let's take a moment to address the strongest objections. Some say the Church hates women. That's false. The Church venerates Mary above all saints, declares both men and women as doctors of the Church, and relies heavily on women in leadership roles across dioceses, theology faculties, and religious life. Others say Phoebe proves we should ordain women today. But again, the Church doesn't build doctrine on isolated examples, especially when there's no evidence Phoebe served at the altar, preached, or consecrated the Eucharist. Some argue that if the Church studied this issue, it must be open to change. But study does not equal permission. The Church studies complex questions to deepen understanding, even when the answer remains unchanged. And some raise a deeper wound: women who felt dismissed or silenced in church settings. That pain is real, and if you're carrying that wound, know that the Church needs your voice, your gifts, and your faithful presence. Please speak with a good priest or spiritual director. You are not alone. Now let's look at the strongest objections and how the Church responds. What do we take away from all this? First, the early Church had women called deaconesses. Their role was real. It mattered. But it was distinct from the sacrament of holy orders. That historical fact helps us see the Church's consistency, not contradiction. Second, the Church continues to elevate women's dignity and vocation, not by copying secular roles, but by honoring theological truth. Mary, not Peter, is the greatest human creature who ever lived. That's not hierarchy, that's holiness. Third, when we discuss roles in the Church, we must always ask, what did Christ institute? What did the apostles hand on? What has the Church consistently taught? The answers to those questions form our unity. If you want to go deeper, start with Romans 16 and 1 Timothy 3. Then read CCC 1554 to 1577. Pray with those texts. Ask the Lord to show you how to serve the Church with clarity and charity. If this helped you, share it with a friend, subscribe, and check out our web app for daily Catholic resources and soul search to guide your spiritual journey. Clarity becomes courage when you live it.